Please note, for maximum picture quality, it may be necessary to adjust the tracking control on your VCR.
In the sardonic world of Broadway, how do you make a name for yourself when you're surrounded by such talent? What steps do you take to become a star? And how much do we all just want to quaff martinis with Bette Davis? Fasten your seatbelts. And this is Adjust Your Tracking, a podcast where we're on an adventure to watch a century of cinema, decade by decade, year by year. And I am one half of your hosts, Liam Delaney. And with me is not my regular co-host, Mr. Oliver Jones. It's actually Natalie Gardner instead. Welcome to the show, Natalie.
Hi, thanks for having me on. It's quite an honour.
I think, you were last on for our 70s series, weren't you? For... it was
Mikey and Nicky, wasn't it?
That's the one, yeah. Which I absolutely loved.
I know,
I love that film. So
yeah, that was a great one, and that was a little while ago now. Although the time's flown by, it was about August, I think.
Probably was around then, yeah. And since then, nothing's happened.
Nothing has happened. The world is still sort of on pause,
the world's
isn't
still
it?
messed.
It's
like...
still a big old mess. But we're still here to fight another day, aren't we? So New Year and all that. Did you have a nice New Year?
I had a very nothing Christmas and New Year, frankly. Which is fine. But it is what it is, really. Making do more than anything else. Yourself?
Yeah, same. It was just really quiet. It's the first time I hadn't been home for Christmas, actually. So it was just me and my boyfriend. So that was nice. And obviously the cat as well. So that was nice. But yeah, it was the first time I had to do a Christmas dinner all by myself, which...
How did that go?
Andy did some peeling and some gravy, but that's about it. It actually went fine. It went better than expected. And
good.
Yeah, it was actually a nice day, and... you just had to make the best of it, didn't you, really? You couldn't really do very much. But
I love cooking, so I normally do the cooking for Christmas. I normally do everything. And this year, instead of it being me cooking for multiple people, it was basically just me cooking for myself. And my housemate was here as well. But
nice.
So we kind of shared it and just had we had quite a quiet day compared to everything. We didn't really do much, just cooked some food and then went to bed relatively early, frankly.
See, we just got really drunk, which I don't know if that's...
Okay, fantastic.
So, it was quite fun, really. I mean, I'm still not back at work, obviously.
Sure, I was going to ask you.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I've sort of been kept on and I've been furloughed and stuff, so I've been really lucky with that. And a lot of friends in the theatre haven't had that, so I'm really, really pleased and lucky to have that. But but it's just your whole world goes into condensed into this
shrinks down. I did see on Instagram earlier, actually, the theatre fund that we talked about last time. They're still promoting the same sort of stuff. It hasn't changed for theatres. No, since we last spoke.
No,
there isn't enough support for the arts coming through still. So there's still a big push for the public to please help these people that are pushing for arts, because we can't lose this stuff. It's really important.
It's a pretty dire situation still. I know a few of my friends were in productions because obviously there was that little bit of time just before this lockdown where things were starting to come back to theatres again, albeit sort of smaller theatres or with a really small cast. There's these trial productions, and a couple of my friends were in little things like that, and they may have got 1 or 2 shows done, and then they had to close again. And it was God, all that effort and all that time and energy to try and get it back up on its feet. And that was I think quite disheartening for a lot of people. But the thing is, and what I do cling to with all this, is that the desire for theatre is still there, very much so. And
sure.
And the performers and the creatives behind it are eager and willing to get going as soon as they can. So it's that hasn't gone away. It is just the funding, and if it can survive in the meantime. But as soon as they're allowed to, they're raring to go. There's so
I saw some shows advertised for tickets and stuff like that coming up. So there's clearly people talking about it, and there's the push to get some opened at some point. So
absolutely, as
just
soon as possible.
just hopefully.
Yeah. So we'll see, but it'll happen soon, hopefully. I don't want to promise that, and then people will be like, "You said your theatre will be open soon." I'm like, no.
It's soon in a relative sense. It's soon compared to the just what the hell's going on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in the grand scheme of things.
In the grand scheme of soon.
History will look back on it and say it was fairly soon after I said that.
Yeah, exactly. It was only 2 years or something.
Yeah. But fingers crossed.
So, like, have you been watching any films over this time since we last saw you, or over Christmas or anything like that?
Yeah, over Christmas, I watched a lot. I'm trying to think now. I've recently watched Soul, the new Disney Pixar thing, which I absolutely loved. I don't know if you've seen it, but I watched it
on Christmas Day, actually.
Did you? I think I saw it either on Boxing Day or the day after, but it's lovely. I absolutely loved it. It's got that thing about an artist's passion and your thing, finding your thing, and how important that is to the soul, and which just resonates so much for anybody in this industry, and and anybody who's got a passion, I suppose, and it's just lovely. And I thought it was quite grown up for a children's film. Like I don't know how young children would actually, if they would get it, but no, I don't know.
I think it's Pete Docter, the director of that. He's also the guy who did Inside Out, and so the themes of that are very kind of similar. He did Up as well, and Monsters Inc. I think it was his first one. I love all those, and I think he's probably I think he's probably Pixar's best director. But I think he doesn't make kids films. I think he makes adult films. And I have heard from multiple people that whilst Inside Out they love, their kids don't really care for it as much as like parents care for it. And I think it's probably the same for Soul, to be honest. But I really loved it too. I really enjoyed watching it. More, I really loved the animation. I loved the design of the afterlife people and stuff like that, and the way the afterlife looked and things. I was really into that. And I was really into the kind of single line drawings of them and how they move around and stuff. I thought that was amazing. Yeah, and actually that was what resonated with me more than anything else, actually.
Yeah, I think it was a really interesting way to... And they were all called Jerry, weren't they?
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
it was just like, you can't. And he said something, I can't remember the line, but he was like, "Your feeble human brain won't understand this, so we're all Jerry."
We're all Jerry.
And I just thought that was brilliant, because it's like, and like you said, like the very simple drawing, and the way it was depicted was excellent. Very like. So he's a genius to come up with that kind of concept, because you just think, like, how could you even begin to picture that? And he has, and done it in a really simple way that really effective.
Like, and as soon as I saw that bit, I was like, oh, I'm into this now. Like, I really like this now, whereas I'm not sure I would have been other way, really.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It was very cool. So I was watching that, and I like the fact his name was Joe Gardner. I was like, yes,
of course, yeah.
such a simple brain. Like that made me happy. And he had a cat, and it was like, it's great.
It works for me.
It all ticked a lot of boxes for me. And I also love the guy who it's Graham Norton, wasn't it? The guy on the end, the mad guy at the end of the street. And I just love the fact that they brought that in, that element of the person you might think is crazy on the sidewalk or whatever is actually just more enlightened, or in this other zone that you
kind of tuned in.
Yeah, he's actually more tuned in than most people, and I love that. I actually thought that was great, because he's actually in the zone, which you all think he's mad, but he's not. He's just which I thought was really cool, and I thought Graham Norton was a good choice for that as well.
Yeah, I agree. He was a proper... I was hearing his voice going, I know that voice. Why do I know that voice? Like, and it was a proper... I looked it up and was like, of course it's Graham Norton.
Yeah.
Like, but I just didn't expect to hear him voicing the character in that. Like, I didn't expect it. So
well. I did not expect it at all. And and then you have to look it up and go, oh, of course it's Graham Norton. It's such a random one, But,
it is. But I love him as an actor. He's so good in Father Ted.
Like, which
he
is.
how most of us were introduced to him, really.
Yeah.
And I kind of miss, like, I was watching going, he should do more. He's good at this.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I know, like, he's got a huge career as a host and a chat show host and Eurovision stuff, but he's good acting and he's good comedic timing and stuff. And I'd like to keep seeing more stuff from him, to be honest.
Absolutely. I remember, as you say, like in Father Ted all those years ago. I mean, that was a long time ago now. And I just remember thinking at the time, this guy is going to have a huge career as a comedian.
He's a star. Exactly.
You know,
I agree.
I think we all sort of wow, this guy. Because I remember at the time crying with laughter. I mean, I don't know, because I've watched it since and I think maybe it has dated a little bit. But
sure.
But at the time, I remember just finding him hilarious and just...
Yeah.
You know, it was just wild, and just I remember thinking this guy's going to be huge. And
it's his energy.
Yeah,
he has so much energy on it. Like it's almost like you can imagine him off screen bottling it up, and then as soon as they, go, he just explodes with this energy on screen, and it really works.
Brilliant. But then obviously he went down the presenting route, which he's great at. But I know what you mean. I'd love to see him do more acting, like comedic roles. You know, I think he's really got something that's quite unusual.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, but. We'll see if he will. We don't know. But,
we don't know. But yeah, I stand Graham Norton. I like Graham Norton.
Yeah,
so.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. He's great. I also saw something called I See You on Netflix. I don't know if you've seen this, but it's about
I don't
frogging.
think I have, no.
I don't know, actually, maybe I shouldn't give it away, but it's it's a really good film on Netflix. So yeah, it's directed by Adam Randall.
Yeah.
It's just a really good twist in it, and it's quite dark, but yeah.
Oh, with Helen Hunt.
So no, she's really good in it, and it's just really it's an interesting one. It's quite a small film, not a huge budget. I wouldn't have thought, but it's but it was really good.
Kind of horror themed, is it? Or like...
Yeah, sort of very tense. I mean, it really made me like on the edge of my seat, sort of. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was
you
good.
should, if you get a chance, check out Relic that came out this year.
Ooh, yeah.
It is a horror film, but it is, as you say, it's more about the kind of existential drama of that horror. Directed by, I think she's New Zealand or Australian, I can't remember. Filmmaker, and it's really is about it's about dementia. Quite clearly.
Wow.
But it's about like the kind of horror of dementia. And it's really good. I really recommend it.
Yeah.
It just the look at the post for ICU reminded me of it, and I think you might like it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that sounds like a really interesting topic as well, and terrifying. So concept, but at the same time a really good idea for a film, and
yeah. And it makes it quite visceral as well. That's what's quite interesting about it. Like it's still got that visceral horror, but it has got something behind it about the kind of real horror of dementia and stuff. So it's good.
Yeah, no, I'll check it out for sure. And I saw a film called Hope Gap on Netflix as well.
Okay.
I don't know if you
no, I don't know that either.
But that was a really nice film. I made my boyfriend watch it on New Year's Eve. It's not really a New Year's Eve celebratory film. It's about it's very depressing. It's about a couple breaking up after like 30 years of marriage. But I thought it was great. It's got Annette Bening. It's got Annette Bening in it, and Bill Nighy and Josh O'Connor.
Oh yeah, sure.
Great cast. I actually like. Very minimal and probably quite a small budget, but really, I mean, Annette Bening in it is just amazing. She's just phenomenal to watch.
I love Annette Bening.
She's so good.
I'll happily watch that.
Yeah, no, check it out honestly, because I mean they're all good in it. It's only really the three of them and a couple of smaller roles, but they just kind of carry the whole thing, and they're all great actors. Josh O'Connor's from The Crown. He plays Prince Charles, and he's that up and coming guy who I think is brilliant. And obviously Bill Nighy's a legend, but
it's Bill Nighy.
Yeah. But no, it was a lovely film. It's sad, but it's really good. So if check that out.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, have you seen anything good recently?
Yeah, the only one I guess I'll shout out because it's been a while since we recorded, but Nomadland I watched a couple of days ago, which will be one of those films that I think are going to pop up around awards seasons. I think it's already winning stuff on awards season. It's directed by Chloe Zhao, I believe you pronounce it, Zhao, who she directed a film called The Rider, which is a really good film about kind of rodeo. That film was really unique in the fact that all the people in the film were actually rodeo, like cowboys, not professional actors. So it gave like a real kind of realism to that kind of film. And Nomadland, she again kind of looks at this kind of lost segments of like America, of that middle America. And Nomadland's about people who live, homeless people who live out of kind of vans, who live out of kind of RVs and stuff like that, who some of them choose to, some of them don't, so like fall on hard times and stuff. But it's about the journey of the kind of what the kind of Great Recession of like 2007 did to a lot of people who had to lose their homes, and how they keep surviving. But also it's not romanticizing it, but it's not vilifying it either. It's just kind of trying to explore the people and the struggles and that life. And Frances McDormand plays the lead. She is
amazing. I'll definitely watch that.
Low-key drama. It's very good, very, very good. So I really would recommend that quite a bit.
Definitely, I'll definitely watch both of those, The Rider and Nomadland, is it?
Nomadland, yeah.
Yeah. I meant Nomadland. Yeah, definitely. They sound great.
And one of the films I think you quite like, actually. We'll move on, but I watched a film, I don't know what it's available on, but it's called The Nest, and it stars Jude Law.
I think I've seen this advertised somewhere on maybe Amazon or Netflix.
Yeah, I think it is streaming. I just can't remember where it's streaming. But yeah, it's Jude Law and Carrie Coon. Basically, he's like an ambitious English entrepreneur, and he marries an American, and he decides to bring him back to England so he can make his like fortunes in England. It's kind of set around the 80s. Well, it is set in the 80s, but it's not a period piece so much. Like, it's about like his obsession with being a successful like entrepreneur man, and her kind of struggles with being immigrant into England in that time period, and they're bringing a family over as well, and that struggles and stuff. And I've heard it described as like a ghost film without ghosts.
That's interesting.
And it's a really good description of it, like, because it's all about the nest, the house they buy, the big house they buy when they come back to England, and how that huge house they buy, how it kind of impacts their lives and impacts them going forward, and looks at their relationship and their relationship to kind of success and stuff. It's wonderful. It's really good.
Oh wow! I'll definitely.
And
check
I'd recommend that as well. Like,
yeah. Oh, that sounds great. I love the idea of a ghost story without any ghosts.
It's got that element to it. It's
quite emotive, that kind of.
Yeah. The way that kind of you can imagine, you could insert ghosts into some of the shots. You could insert like a physical presence of the horror into these shots, but it doesn't have that. It's not supernatural. It's about the kind of reality of their drama. But drama can be horrible without ghosts, really. But like,
and
so
haunting.
It has that and haunting. Yeah.
So yeah.
So it's
wow, that sounds great.
Really recommend it. I really loved it.
Lovely. Cool.
So we should probably move on a little bit to talk about the 50s.
Yeah.
Rather than just catch up on what films we like. But I didn't say this up top, but we're just taking a break, me and Ollie, at the moment. Not that sounded weird, because but Ollie is flat into making another music video, and anytime he takes on one of these claymation projects, he just becomes his whole life dedicated 24 hours to him making these claymation models and filming. So so he doesn't have time to kind of do anything else. So so I thought I'd invite Natalie onto the show, and we can talk about another film from the 50s just to kind of keep the momentum going a little bit. We had a bit of a chat about what film to do. It wasn't a long chat, but like I pulled a couple of ideas that were on our kind of long list when were putting together the 50s. We kind of ended up with All About Eve.
Honoured members, ladies and gentlemen, for distinguished achievement in the theatre, the Sarah Siddons Award to Miss Eve Harrington.
I'm going to take you to Margo. Oh, no. Oh, yes, she's got to meet you.
She's quite a girl, this what's her name?
Eve. I'd forgotten they grew that way. I take it she read well.
wasn't a reading, it was a performance. Brilliant, vivid, something made of music and fire.
How nice. After all you've said, don't you know that part was written for Margo?
It might have been 15 years ago. It's my part now.
You're quite a girl.
You think?
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night. You do all that just for a part in a play.
I'd do much more for a part that good.
Why do they always look like unhappy rabbits?
Because that's what they are. Don't make him happier.
There never was, and there never will be another like you.
Before we talk about all about Eve, like, do you have any experience with films from the 50s, or kind of thoughts about kind of films from the 50s at all?
So I probably haven't seen as many as I would like to have, and from that sort of golden Hollywood era.
Yeah.
And things that I think sometimes are 50s turn out to be 40s
Sure.
or 60s, and you know, there's that kind of bit in the middle. But obviously, Marilyn Monroe films, you know, and a big thing, and something that I've always loved Marilyn. So, and you know, Sunset Boulevard scene.
Yeah, same year as this as well.
Same year, which I didn't realise.
And similar themes, I'd say.
Similar themes as well, which I was like, oh, that's an interesting thing. But yeah, it's a great time for cinema, and obviously there's Hitchcock as well coming up in that time as well. So yeah, I've seen, you know, a lot of his films, which are incredible, and
which we haven't done a Hitchcock yet, but that's mainly because I've seen a lot of them.
Yeah.
So it's like, but I think we're going to do either Vertigo or Rear Window as a special episode, just because.
Amazing.
They are just stunning films,
works
and
apart, you know.
And obviously, you know, 62 I think is Psycho, so it's just he's kind of magnum opus, so to speak. He's just out the 50s, but the 50s Hitchcock kind of is what's happening now. Is he's moved to America, he stopped doing British films, and he's starting to take on Hollywood a little bit, and I think that's, you just see that rising at this time. He's got so many films in the 50s.
No, he's I love Rear Window, and Vertigo actually, and the kind of suspense and the way it's shot and the way he frames everything like a work of art. It's
maybe if we do Rear Window, when I first saw it, I knew Rear Window before seeing it, because it's such a film that's been like copied and redone and like commented on and pastiche and stuff like that. But actually then sitting down to watch it, I realised how much I didn't know. Like, it's so much more of a full like masterpiece than I gave it credit for, from just knowing it from like Simpsons jokes or just, you know, remakes and stuff. It kind of shocks you to sometimes actually go back and watch the film, which is almost what I got with this, because I know all about Eve because I've seen it on stage a couple of times. I saw it last year. I saw it in February. It was the last time I went to the theatre. I saw it with Gillian Anderson.
Yes, of course.
So that was the last thing I'd seen in February before lockdown. Like
gosh, was it playing then?
Yeah, it was. And
I really thought it was.
It was probably started earlier. I think it was towards. I don't know. You know what? I don't know if it was
maybe
towards the end of the run.
End of the last year before, and then into that, because that's crazy that was it. And what did you think of it? I didn't see that production, which I'm so sad I didn't get to see it.
It was, honestly, it was such a good performance. This script is such a fantastic script. Like, it's so precise, and because it's a really not very plotty film. There's not a lot of locations. There's not a lot of scenes. Well, so there's not a lot of scenes, but like all the scenes are just full of dialogue. So it translates to stage so well, like just so easily translates to stage performances. Because you just need a few different like indications of scenes back, you know, in like the dressing rooms or back in the houses or on the stage itself. There's only really those kind of things you need to actually tell the story. They had this wonderful setup when I saw it, whereas they had video screens and then they had stuff happening behind the stage. So they had like a party broke out, and then there was people hanging about in a kitchen that was taking place off stage, but you saw it through the video screen and stuff like that, which was just a really nice way of bringing you then into their lives off the stage, which worked really well. I would really be interested in comparing the script to what they did on stage compared to this script, because I think it was pretty much the same. But it was a modern telling of it when I saw it on stage. It wasn't set in the 50s. It was set like now. And I don't get your opinion on that, but I think it's very easy to do that with this script. I think it's a very
it
simple...
feels like it could have been written yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of, when you think about the themes in it and a lot of the things that are being dealt with in the film, it's the same things we're still dealing with really today, you know. And it's very interesting, and that's why I really would love to see that production. Actually, was it the National? Was it a National?
You know, I
production?
can't remember which one it was at. I can look it up.
You know, because they record things, don't they, at the National?
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I think it's really relevant, and I think that's probably why they probably chose to put it on a couple of last year or whenever it was. But yeah, so I mean, the idea of a woman's place in society and career, and then what she has to sacrifice to get there, and then, you know, is she just disposed of at a certain age because you know that's what society suggests a lot of the time. I mean, it's all the similar things that we're experiencing, you know, in society today, and how unhealthy that is for everybody, not just for women, but everyone involved. And I thought the fact that it's seen, the way they play on that through the use of another woman, is an actually really interesting technique. And it's very easy to just go, oh well, the women are the problem. You know?
yes.
You know, whereas, you know, obviously it's I actually don't think the script suggests that. I actually think the script writing's brilliant. And I actually thought it had been written by a woman, because I thought this is very you know, when I found out it's what's his Mankiewicz, is that how you say it? Mankiewicz?
Yes, Mankiewicz.
Yeah. I thought that's brilliant. He gives each woman, you know, within the narrative, respect, and the lines are good, and the monologues are meaty, and the parts are well drawn. I mean, I was surprised to see it was a man that had actually written. I thought maybe it had been written by a woman and then put, but it was actually
kind of is. It's based on something called The Wisdom of Eve, which was written by Mary Orr, but it's not really. It's more like an anecdote, basically, of her life, of something that happened to her, I believe, or something she heard happened to an actress in Austria or something, I think it is. It's gone out of my head now, so I'm not totally sure what I think it's a short story that was published within Cosmopolitan or something.
I read this, and it was just like a short story about a younger woman trying to usurp another like an actress or something, but it's not the same. But then he took that and then he just massively expanded on it.
He did.
And I think he did a brilliant job. I mean,
to talk about Mankiewicz really briefly, his brother he wrote Citizen Kane. So the film Mank that just came out at Christmas is actually based on him. So, like, if that's worth watching. Like, but Mankiewicz, this is his magnum piece, really, if you're going to speak to him as a director. He did a lot of 20th Century Fox films coming up before this, but really then he made this. And then he did a lot of Technicolor kind of films like Guys and Dolls, Quiet American, and Cleopatra coming up later. But this film's really, as you say, it's surprising in the fact that it really touches onto he really gets into the mind of women in this film and in the role of femininity in the film. He somehow has kind of tapped into that in a way that I don't think many writers ever do. And I think one of the really good examples of that is the dialogue that Margo has when she's just sitting in the car when she's missed the theatre thing, and she talks about like being a woman. One thing she doesn't do in that is talk about having kids, which is what I think what every writer ever does when they write about being a woman is they talk about having kids, and they make it all about that. And she isn't about that. It's about being in love. It's about someone loving you. And it's about, you know, you have to do everything a man does and also be a woman is the thing that every woman has in contact, and I love how it's about being loved and being loved for her, which is a thing that I think must have resonated with actresses at the time, and obviously resonated with people, because it's not like it's her worry that people are constantly falling in love with the character she plays and actually not her herself. I think is just so on point and really works. And what makes the extra kind of heartbreaking actually is that during this film, Bette Davis, that we will talk about Bette Davis, but in this film, Bette Davis, she starts a relationship with Gary Merrill. He's the guy who played Bill during this. They fell in love on a photo shoot for this film. Because they were shooting them together because the studio heads were worried about older women with younger men, and they were concerned how they would look together. So they were doing like a photo shoots to see how that is. And actually, that's still relatively rare to actually have that happen in film, like even to this day.
Even more. Do you know what? Sometimes I think even more so. To
probably, yeah.
It's mad.
But she had a cigarette and asked him to light it. He refused to light it. And at that point, Bette Davis was like, well, I fell in love with him then.
I love that. I mean, she's a goddess. She's
an absolute goddess.
And yet the idea that anybody said no to her is like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
This person intrigues me. Okay,
this is intriguing. And she was actually going through a divorce when she shot this, and she ends up marrying Gary in 1950. They get divorced 10 years later as well. Like this is Bette Davis's life with divorces, and unfortunately people dying as well. But they end up describing that relationship as they fell in love with characters on this film. They were two characters, they were playing characters, and they fell in love as characters, and then afterward they had to then be in love as people. And I think it's extra heartbreaking that monologue that she has about wanting to be loved for herself, she's doing the exact same thing in her own life as falling in love with a character and not seeing the person behind it. And that's such a way that this film speaks to people and manages to capture that essence, I think, of what it is to be an actress, or what it is to be an actor, even in this time.
I think that just sums it up really well, because it is that idea of where do we as people end and the character begin, and that is a huge problem for a lot of actors, because you spend weeks or months with somebody, staring into their eyes, telling them you love them, and and then obviously once it all stops, it's like, oh, was that real, or what we feel after the filming stops is real? And I think it becomes a real issue for a lot of people, and one that you have to make peace with, or you will go mad, or not necessarily go mad, but you will jeopardize all of your relationships outside in the real world. And I do think that is something that has probably plagued a lot of performers. But I think I love that monologue she has in the car. I think it's superb. It's moving. It's not overly emotional. She retains her strength within it, and yet conveys so much despair, to her situation, which is, I carry on with my career in this way, and I either become irrelevant because of my age, or 40, oh my god,
yeah, that's totally
and I potentially end up just alone, and that's her choice, or
a bit of a joke. I think that's what she worries about being as well. A lot of her angst in this film is being told that she still can play 20, and she's sitting in her house going, I can't play 20. I know I can't. And people keep telling me I can, and they're mad.
What's that line she has at the near the beginning? It's like, when are you going to make me write me a real part where a wife just shoots her husband? And it's like, come on, it's that place where the writer only wants to write parts for the young ingenue, the 20-year-old who's full of life and vivacity and just really in love with life, because that's what he wants to see a woman be. And there's this other side of women which is actually a lot more interesting, a lot more powerful as they get older and their character develops and they get more confident and everything else. And that's what Bette Davis in this Margo represents. And what I love about the writing of this is at no point do you blame Bill for choosing Margo. You see exactly why he would, because she is always held up as yes, she's feisty, yes, she's difficult, yes, she's maddening at times, but you like her. Everyone likes her because she is truthful, she's authentic, she's intelligent,
she's witty, and she's funny.
Witty. And I think that's that is a brilliant. That's what's so brilliant about it. Whereas I think in if we were to compare it to, like, say, Sunset Boulevard and Norma Desmond, and you sort of think you can kind of see why,
why people wouldn't. Yes, exactly.
Her, because she's more of like, it's the terrifying caricature of what an older woman.
Yes.
Older
woman.
40. I have to keep coming back to that. I'm very nearly 40 myself, so it's like, well, in a few years, but you know what I mean? Just like, that's mad. But anyway,
the spectre's approaching.
Oh gosh. And but so I think that's what I really loved about it. And as you say, not talking about children, which is so often the way that women are perceived, especially I would have thought at that time. It's kind of just
exactly.
there to be the family.
I think it's a smart script. Like, I know that Mankiewicz had to fight for like every line against the censors. Like, there's a bit early on that she describes herself as love starved. Margo does, and the script said sex starved, and the censor was just like, nope, like, you're not having that. Like, there's a bit when Eve is telling her origin story to everyone in the dressing room, and Birdie, that is like Margot's maid, makes a really kind of cutting comment about it. And she said that, like, that it has everything but the bloodhound snapping at your rear end or her rear end. And the censors were like, nope, you can't talk about that. Like, and because like talking about, like, suggesting someone has an ass is like too much for the censors in the 50s. So like every single line in this film was fought over, and he really fought for it. And I think it's definitely worth talking about Bette Davis forever. But like when she came into the project, the script changed as well, which I think is really important. It, like, Margo beforehand was a much more likable, though I don't like that term because I think she's really likable, but she was a less kind of harsh, she was a less, like, had less edges to her. And then when Bette Davis signed on, he went back to the script and actually put in those edges and put in those performances, because this is what Bette Davis can do. Like, that's what she was really good at. And it was also echoing her real life as well. And like, if there's one thing you have to know about Bette Davis, is that she struggled in Hollywood. At every single point, she always struggled. She fought against everything. Like, she was perceived as like a difficult actress. One of these women that we keep covering on the podcast that Hollywood tells you are too difficult to work with, like, and all it means is they had opinions, like,
and which was why they could act as well as they could, because they were intelligent, observant human beings that could see the world around them. That's how they can portray it.
So like when Mankiewicz was even told that when he was hiring Betty Page, he was warned, like, another director called him and warned him about her, saying that she will crush you into a fine paste, I think is what, like, he was warned about. And when Mankiewicz she told Betty about this, she was like, oh yeah, but those scripts weren't good. Like, I had to fight on set because those scripts aren't good. This script is the best script I've ever read. So I don't need to do this. And that she wasn't difficult. She just knew what was good, and she knew how she sounded on set and how she could deliver lines and what looked good. And at every point, like, she would fight against what role she took. Like, this is her coming out of a bit of a kind of a wilderness period in her kind of career. Because she kept on turning down every role they offered her. And there was a thing with the old studio system: if you turned down a role, they didn't give you another one. They added time to your contract at the end of it. So she even went to court to fight against this and failed, and it wasn't until another actress took it later, and I can't remember her name at the top of my head, that even stopped being a thing. So she actually been through court during this, just before this, to fight for roles. In the 60s as well, in the 40s, she took a role where she played much older. She was really kind of dressed up as like an older actress. She looked much older than 40s. And she was told at the time that this would ruin her career. She can't play older. It's The Corn is Green is the film. But like, she knew that she didn't have to be portrayed as like a 20-year-old all the time. She knew that she was getting older, and this was the first time in Hollywood where actresses were kind of getting older on screen. Yeah. So like, because it's not that, it's like 30 years into kind of like voice kind of acting. So like, it's the first time that you're dealing with people that are 18 on screen in the kind of 30s or like 40s, and then actually growing up to be an older actress. So maybe that's why you're getting these films about what do you do with these actresses, that kind of thing. Yeah,
let's make a film about an older actress. Yeah. But yeah, it's true, because they wouldn't have been there before. They were
just older roles, but an older starlet was a new thing. Yeah. Like it was something that they hadn't had to look at before. And you say older, but she's, as you say, she's 42, I think, in this film. But I think, and I would guess this was Betty, she looks older in this film. They're putting makeup on her. They're lighting her in different ways. I think they're making her look older than 40 in this film. And I think that's a brave choice. I think that the whole thing about this film is that Betty makes brave choices constantly. She's out of makeup. You see her mid-dressed, kind of with all the kind of half makeup faces. You see her kind of dressing. She knows what she looks like out of makeup, and she's making those choices to be on screen to kind of seem like that. And I think it's even though, I don't want to be too dramatic about it, but I think most actresses wouldn't have been doing that this period. And I think it makes the character really stand out in this film, and makes her performance stand out. And her performance is just astonishing. She's everything in this. She's angry, she's bitchy, she's a starlet, she's a grande dame, she's adorable, she's witty, kind of. She has all of that in her performance at all points, and she's just a joy to watch.
Yeah, it is, and it's a masterclass. You're watching it and you're like, oh, okay, Betty, that's how you act that. You watch her, and you're just like, oh yeah, okay, right. I wasn't sure how I would act that role, but now I know, because she's just perfect at it. I mean, the woman can look up from, something that she's reading down on the table, and she looks up, and you just read in her eyes everything. She's just incredible. The woman's incredible. I mean, technically brilliant, and just captivating. And I think it's such a, as you say, like, she was going through so much before this, and to think that she wasn't even the first person they went to. I think it was something like the eighth person or ninth person that they thought of. Before they went through her.
Everyone.
And and I just think it was fate. It had to happen. This had to happen. Yeah. It's her probably her strongest role, and it's, I think so. Perfect.
Yeah. And it gets to everything that you know about Betty as an actress as well. Everything that would have been in the kind of gossip columns is in this film. Her first, to give a bit of origin story of her. There's all these stories about that when she came to Hollywood, she got her mom and her got the train there. And the kind of the scout that was meant to meet them at the station left them at the station and went back to the studio and told them that there was no one there who could be a Hollywood actress. That's just like that. And but Betty's this kind of force of nature that's not stopping her. She got her first acting role on stage when I think she was I don't think she was even an actor. I think she was an usher or something. And the lead actress broke her leg, and so Betty took over the role. And the rumors forever have been that she broke her leg, she maintains she didn't, but that's the kind of personality she had that no one can quite believe she didn't break her leg. Because she was just this as you say, queen of and she knew what she wanted and she went for it. There's a story about her when she was a kid that she got burnt in a Christmas tree fire, which is apparently a thing, but she pretended she was blind for ages until her parents realised that she was just lying. Like, she just had this like innate flair for the dramatic, you know, like that was who she was down her heart, and that's who she knew how to portray on screen. Like, and so all the stuff in this, like, she embodies all that stuff when you see her. Like, there's a brilliant scene when she's up in a room talking to Birdie and she's getting herself ready for the party, which is one of the best parties I've ever seen on film. And she finds out her boyfriend's there and that she's talking to Eve. Yes. And this is when she's starting to kind of suspect Eve for like manipulating her. And she downs her martini and runs out the room and runs down the stairs. And then just before she hits the final step, she composes herself and walks elegantly into the room to talk to them. Yeah. And I was just like, that is a masterclass. That is just so good. Like, all acting, all on the screen, like it's all there. And she just knows how to control everything about herself, how to portray all that.
Absolutely,
it's so good.
Turning in a second from anger to anguish, and you know, just like she'll, you know, there was another instance of it later on where they've written this horrible thing about her as being after Eve has betrayed her part as Eve becomes the understudy, and then she, through weird scenario, gets to go on, and they write a horrible thing about Margot being too old and she's having to make way for the new actresses coming through. And she's fuming. I mean, it's that, like, she's so angry, which understandably so. And then Bill comes in and she just crumbles. And it's that moment of she sees him, he's come back to, you know, to sort of be with her and support her, which I thought was brilliant. I was like, yes, Bill. But I love Bill in this. But anyway, and you just see her from this, you know, point of like just being so angry and so strong to just crumbling, and the true Margot coming out, the vulnerability of that, and the fact that actually the reason she's so angry is because she's so hurt, and a lot of the time the reason she's having to be so forceful or fierce or is because she can see what's going on, and what's going on is not great. You know, for the women for her in this situation, she doesn't necessarily see it in Eve to start with, but then as time goes on and she does see it, and she's just brushed off as being paranoid, or you know, and
of course, and
crazy,
just jealous,
you know, jealous, paranoid. You must be, because you know, and it's I found that really interesting, because I think I've definitely had this experience where I have seen through, say, somebody I know, a girl I know, or a woman I know, and my male friends won't see what I can see. And they just don't see it because, oh no, she's a lovely girl. And then you're like, they can't see it. But okay, I'm not going to say anything because I'll just be the person who's being horrible or whatever. But, you know, and so I think that is actually quite an interesting thing. And this is why I was really surprised that a man had written it as well, because I was just like, that's a really interesting thing for him to have noticed and to have seen that actually women can be really manipulative and they can be really conniving, just like men can be, you know, just because they're coming across as sweet and innocent doesn't necessarily mean they are. And that's something that trips up, you know, a lot of people. You know, they judge people just on how they're presenting, especially in show business, you know, that could be
but show business is so much about how you kind of, it is about talent, but it's a lot about connections. It's about being seen by the right people, and it makes you question if Margot at some point might have been Eve. You know, at some point she might have done something in her career and she took that chance, you know, maybe a little bit too far, and she feels a little bit guilty about it, but she took that leap, and that she's always got that paranoia that someone's going to do it to her and take away her thing. And what I think's kind of interesting by the end of the film is that, like, she realizes it doesn't matter. She's still Margo. Like at the end of it, she doesn't have to fight the 20-year-olds. She's got it, and she's got friends, and she's got people that like someone who loves her, and she loves them. Like she's found like a kind of security, even though the system hasn't changed. She's just found a security in it, and which I think is like weirdly a nice ending to something that I think the first time I saw it, I didn't get that from it. I think that's like something I saw. Well, but when I saw it on stage, I didn't get that from it. When I saw it watching on film, I got a little bit more kind of actually she's a little bit happier at the end, which is nice.
Definitely. It's because, like she says, isn't she, I'll have a life outside of just being in the theatre every night, you know, and it's that sort of thing of, you know, she's learned that actually being the amazing star that she is, and she still is, even at the end of the film, is not all her life is. It's also about her friendships, it's also about her relationships, and at the end of it, she actually does come out as the winner in that. She sort of finds her equilibrium in that, and she's at peace with all that. And like, as you say, she probably did do something similar to Eve. And whether I do think Eve is quite something, to be honest. The way she goes after Bill as well, I was like,
yeah, she is. She's definitely the villain. Well, one of the villains.
But yeah, I just think she probably has done something similar, and maybe Eve is going to be on that journey as well. In that, and you know, and obviously we see that at the end when obviously history repeats itself, and there's another young starlet who in the making who's sort of sat in her room, which is
it's brilliant, that ending, because it's shot like a horror film, like in the way she comes in and it raises up to the mirror and you see the person behind her, but also like it's like a horror sequel, because like it's introduced like she's going to Hollywood, so she's gonna do it there. Like it's like, watch out, she's going over to Hollywood now, and she's gonna find someone else to take out. But then when she creeps up behind her is the actual like someone else is gonna do it to her. Like it's a very kind of satirical or sardonic kind of look at like what like being an actor is, or what like this business is. And I do wonder if there's a little bit like, because it's written by a Hollywood writer and it's looking at New York theatre, I did wonder if there is that kind of like this cutting kind of attitude to kind of New York versus Hollywood. I don't know if that was what that was like at the time, but
bit of that as well. Like there's something that Bill talks about, because obviously Eve says to him quite near the beginning when they first meet, says well, you're going to Hollywood, why are you doing that? And he's like, he feels like he has to defend himself. Like this is a bit of a slur on him as an artist. And you know, he's like, well, I'm just doing one film, you know, I've only got one picture deal, and you know, I'll be back, and you know, all this. And she's like, oh, you won't be back, they never come back once they go to Hollywood, you know, when they get the money and everything. And there is definitely a sort of it pops up a few times, I think.
It does. There's right at the beginning, the narration at the beginning, and we'll have to talk about Addison Lee actually talking about narration.
We will, yeah.
But he calls the Pulitzer a questionable prize right at like the first line. So I think it's very much like kind of that. It's setting you up that this is what type of film this is about.
Yeah.
And it portrays, it's about like insider and outsider as well, I think, in many different ways.
Definitely.
One is that like everyone in this film is funny, smart, mean, witty, apart from Eve. Eve isn't any of that. She doesn't have any of those like things. She's just pretty, like really, and obviously a good actress, we think, as well. We don't actually see her act in this film, but everyone says she's a good actress. But she's always an outsider from that. She doesn't have witty lines. She doesn't have any jokes. She doesn't have any of that. She doesn't have even any of the memorable lines in this script. Like, you know, like unlike Margo, which has 1,000 lines you can quote, and people quote lines from this film without even realizing it's from this film. Like it's going to be a bumpy night.
That's brilliant.
It's like, it's just such a that whole party scene. I loved it. I loved how Margo always has a martini
and drunk acting masterclass. I mean, she's just brilliant in it. It's like she's just got the right amount of drunk and the right amount of, slurriness. Oh, it's perfect.
And like, I wonder, I'm watching it thinking like, are we meant to think this is really sad? Because I just want to hang out with Margo. I just want to, like, I just want to be there with her. Like,
yeah.
And they have this, the actually good thing about that scene, the dress she wears that's just off the shoulders, that wasn't meant to fit like that. They brought it around and it fit badly. It was meant to be just a V-cut, and Bette Davis herself pulled it down around her shoulders.
You know what? I wondered about this dress because there's something going on here where there's a
yes,
bit of a
there
gap
is. With
the sleeve, which obviously would make more sense if it was cut.
More sense if it was cut higher.
And
yeah,
then,
yeah.
Yeah, but I just thought, oh, that's a cool little, must have
cool
been a
look,
modern style that they had at the time. It was quite interesting. But yeah, that's interesting.
And I like it because it kind of tells you everything you need to know about that party as well, because she looks sexy. She's out there to fight for her kind of place there, she's in attack mode, like, and the dress says all that out without like anything else. And it's just such a fantastic scene. As I say, not a lot of kind of locations in this film, so that party takes up a huge runtime of the film, actually.
It does,
which is unusual, but the dialogue is just so engaging. And the performance is so engaging that it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't drag or anything like that. Even being quite a long film, really, it just doesn't drag.
I remember there was one bit in the party scene where Addison arrives with Miss Caswell, which obviously is Marilyn and
Marilyn
Monroe. So, and then he spots Eve, and he sends Marilyn or Miss Caswell off to talk to a producer, because that's what she's there for.
That's your job.
That's your job. Go and charm the producer. And then he basically grabs Eve and walks off with Eve, and Margo, who's the hostess of the party, is left alone as the old woman with a drink, and she says, "Amen," and downs another drink, and I was like, and it could be amen. Or it could be
yes,
because look how they run to the younger women all the and how they go to the and I just thought that was brilliant. I was like, so good.
There's a bit with Marilyn, and we should talk about Marilyn, because obviously the first film I suggested was actually Some Like It Hot. I've never seen all of Some Like It Hot. I've seen half of Some Like It Hot, and I don't know why I've never watched it all. Like, because I'll love it. I know I will. But like it's interesting that we're talking about the 1950s and the kind of aging starlet, because this is a changing of the guard. And you do get Marilyn in this film as a very proto kind of Marilyn role. Like, you're just seeing the origins of what would become her on-screen kind of presence, in the fact that she is like captivating on screen. Like, you can't not look at her on screen. But she's also like witty and funny, and the men around her don't know how to deal with that. Like, they don't quite know how to put those two things together. So that I think this, and it is on screen in this point, and it's the point when they're sitting on the steps. All of them are on the steps, and she says, waiter, and they're like, it's not waiter, he's a butler. And she's like, well, I can't say butler because someone might be called butler. And Addison Lee goes, you have a point. It's like it's a stupid point or something like that, but it's a point. Like, and then the guy next to her, I can't remember who it is. It might be Bill, but I can't remember who it is. Basically goes, I'll go get you a drink. And as he gets up, Addison's just like, you are going to go far in this business.
I remember who it was. It was the producer. Because
was it the producer?
The producer around a little finger by the end.
Around
of
a little finger, yeah.
And that's what I remember thinking. And that's what, Addison was like, you're going to go far. And he says something like, your career is rising in the east like the sun.
Yes.
And
the sun.
Wow,
and it's true. By 1959, Some Like It Hot, which is, so it's incredible, really, that that's all playing out on screen with Bette Davis there as well. Like, as it's her comeback picture, but it wasn't really much of a comeback. To be very honest, like, it was like she didn't win the Oscar for this, which is it's criminal.
Absolutely bonkers. I think it must have only been because she'd upset the studios. I can only think.
Yeah, and it was the first time ever that two actresses had been nominated for the same award from the same film, and I think that just split the vote as well. So it just got split between Anne and Bette, really. And I think by putting Anne up for this actually did like mute the amount of nominations for Bette. But it was, you say, she came out the gate Bette Davis did, got nominated, got like won 2 Oscars back to back for the first 2 like films, then got nominated for like, I don't know, another 10, but never won it again. Which was totally because the system didn't like her. She was difficult to deal with, you know.
I think that, to be honest, when you look back at her roles, it has
like
to
Jezebel,
be,
she didn't win for and stuff. Like
it has
things
to,
that
it
are
has
just
to be that she's upset the wrong people, and
it is,
you know, because there isn't many people who can perform like her. I mean, even to this day, there's not many actresses who can perform like
and
her.
if you her proper kind of comeback, I would say, because it doesn't really happen during the 50s, but 62 is Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, which she's just amazing in. And then after that, she had a bit of like a reigniting to her career as an older actress, really, like that went into TV and film beyond that, really. So really, this is like a bright star rather than a comeback, really, for her, which is a bit. It's just a bit crap. It's just because it was the 50s, you know.
I think I would agree with that. I think, today I don't think that would have been the case, because I do believe that there are more interesting stories being written for older women, you know, older women nowadays. So I think she would definitely go on to have had more in that middle period of her life, as opposed to having to wait another 10 years to actually start getting decent roles.
Because this is just a tour de force. It is like it's and story about George Sanders, who he played Addison, because he actually wins the Oscar for Best Actor. Or is it Best Supporting? I think it's Best Supporting.
I have to make a note of it somewhere. Where was it?
He went up to Betty after the Oscars and just said, "Sour grapes, Betty," and she spat in his face, which I just love.
I mean, I have to say, I thought Addison is really good in it, and I think it is. You know, he got Best Supporting, and I thought, okay, Best Supporting. If he'd got Best Actor, I'd have been like, there's not. It's not a huge role. It's not like a really hugely demanding role. He's just pretty sort of dry all the time.
It's a good supporting role, though.
It is a good supporting role, and
because you remember him, and
you do.
He's one of the villains really on screen. Him and Eve, which is
it's difficult. It's problematic, I think, because they are the outsiders as well, and like there's an undertone of, they're not allowed in our gang or something. Well,
I think both of them are gay coded, are homosexual coded, and I think at some point this might have been more explicit in the script. I don't know, but they're definitely coded as homosexuals, and I think there's a certain amount of homophobia in the film, or at least in the script, because of that. Because, to go on a bit of a weird tangent, at this time you have like the Red Scare, and you have a thing called the Lavender Scare as well, which was particularly in Hollywood, which was about gays in Hollywood. And at the time it was considered the same thing. It was like, so the idea of being like a communist and gay was almost like intertwined. So you have people going after communists at the same time going after gay people because they think they are like more communist. It's bonkers, but it existed. And this is right when this film's coming out. So with the way they kind of like code the gay characters in this are like the enemy. They are sneaky, they're like cynical, they are like undermining to the heteronormative marriages. Both of them are. The deal they make at the end is like Alison makes with Eve is not, it's not anything about sex, it's about power. It's almost like a beard relationship at the end, which is like, a lot of stuff was going on at this time. You know, people like Cary Grant had beard marriages and stuff like that. So that's clearly playing on that kind of element of it. They Birdie describes Eve as like studying like a blueprint, which is kind of coding that kind of like spy kind of code of a way of looking at kind of homosexuals and stuff.
About that, but that's true.
So that's all kind of, I think, baked in the script. I think it is. I don't think it's baked in Mankiewicz so much as it's baked in what Hollywood was kind of like, if I'm honest.
Because I have to say that, because I read some of the reviews and things, and this element came up, and maybe I was just being a bit dumb, but I didn't spot it to start with at all, and I just thought they are the outsiders, and I did think there is this element of, you know, the couples are all allowed in the gang, and that's okay, you know. And I didn't necessarily see it as being a sort of homophobic thing to start with, but when I read that, I was like, actually, that makes a lot of sense when you look back at the way they, like you say, that bit at the end, you know, where he's like, "You belong to me." That was really. Oh, I mean, I found it baffling anyway, because I was like, why would you want to be with this woman?
Yes. Yeah.
And then, but it's kind of hidden beneath the kind of, well, she's very pretty and it's a showpiece for him. But as you say, there's no romance in it. There's no hint of sexual attraction there. It is
there's no hint of any kind of. There's no hint of even sexual kind of. I don't know how to word it, like assault or anything like that. No. There isn't any of that there. No, it's very simply like we're using each other for success
together.
Like,
that we've got that sort of public front, you know.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so interesting because I hadn't necessarily put two and two together and spotted that. And then when I read that review, I was like, you know, and the idea that is linked to communism as well. It's just bonkers, isn't it? But as you say, they are set up as the kind of villains that are sort of there to undermine the marriages, because she tries to not only break up Margo and Bill, but then Lloyd and Karen as well. She's like this, you know, she's just out to destroy all the marriages. And it's like, I mean, that's...
And
I mean, you do think she's terrible, but then you think, well, what are they saying with this? You know, where is it? And when you put that other slant on it, do you wonder if that's what they were getting at, and whether it's that fear of that? You know?
I think it's hard coded in the script. I don't know how much it's hard coded as like a kind of as a homophobic statement. I don't know if that exists, but I think it's hard coded in the script. And Eve's sexuality isn't. It's not explicit on screen, but there is dialogue when Margo basically, I can't remember the exact phrasing of it, but you would like to share a bed with me or something like that, and I'm not going to allow you or something, or you know, I wouldn't be up for that or something.
You
like
would put
it is
me to bed, wouldn't
there.
You? And she said,
that's
if you'd
it.
Like.
Yeah. Eve would gladly put me to bed or something.
Yeah, Eve would gladly put me to bed, and she said, if you'd like, and she said, I would not like. And that's because she's So, it's interesting. It's so interesting that's part of it as well.
Yeah, and just kind of having to read through the limits of censors at the time and stuff like that, and the way stuff it's there. But I think it would have been more explicit if that film was made today. It would just simply be more out. But if it was made today, you wouldn't be kind of having that kind of beard relationship is what's coming out at the end of it.
No.
That is a staple of 1950s Hollywood. So like it's interesting that it's a period piece because of that. Looking back, like it works because it's set in the 50s because of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
To talk about like I was going to say, because you talked about Karen a little bit, and she's a really interesting character in the film as well, because she also portrays another kind of problem of 1950s women, in the fact that you're coming out of the war period where women had a lot of rights, like from like kind of gained a lot of rights, and they kind of gained a lot of jobs and stuff like that. But then the 50s came around again, and it was this idea of a housewife again. And Karen is that role in this, as like having to take a back seat almost, and a more kind of housewife role in her relationship compared to all the other women on screen, actually. And she gets both kind of criticized for that throughout the film, but also then kind of also seen as like rewarded for that almost.
I think
their
so.
marriage.
I think so. I think she's rewarded. Actually, she gets an award at the end, doesn't she? Her husband passes her the award for services.
Oh yeah,
outstanding services or something, because she put up with his nonsense. As he was going to leave her for Eve, but also she's awarded a lot of airtime. She's in a lot of scenes.
Yeah, she is in a lot. Yeah.
And it's something Addison describes her as somebody who should never have been anywhere further forward in the theatre than row E.
Row E, yes.
Yeah, and
she's mean.
Really mean, but brilliant. I mean, a brilliant line, but just like so cutting. But yeah, married the theatre. She wasn't theatre. She'd married the theatre, and and so really she wasn't that important because she's the housewife of the writer. Very, you know, he's meant to be like one of the best writers of the time, isn't he? He's sort of up-and-coming writing star.
Yeah.
And yeah, so she's sort of, in his eyes, fallen on that luck, if you like, and she doesn't really have a lot to offer other than just her being a good housewife. But as you say, she is rewarded for it in a way, even though she's criticised with the lines. She's rewarded physically with the award, and also she's in most of the plot. Like she's the reason that Margot misses her performance.
She is exactly, she's as kind of manipulating as anyone else, really. But kind of no one ever really knows her role in the whole thing, in the fact that she set it up, that she made Margot miss that performance, and the kind of blackmail that Eve tries to do on her doesn't work, even because Margot doesn't want the role. So ultimately, it's the fact that Margot chooses that she doesn't care about that role is actually what undoes all of Eve's plans so much, which is a bit weird, actually, because it means that Eve still manages to progress and get the award at the end. And it's actually all about Margot, actually.
I mean, I thought that was really interesting at the end, because you are just like, as much as I have to say I quite liked Karen throughout it. I did think, you know,
I did too.
She gives Eve a fair go. She doesn't jump to conclusions, but then as time goes on, she's not daft. She does see what's there, and you know, when Lloyd is then, Lloyd seems to fall so much for Eve and all of her manipulations, whereas Bill doesn't, and
Bill doesn't. Bill doesn't see it. Bill feels right through her. Yeah.
Whereas I thought it was interesting that the writer believes Eve's story, because it's the person that would have written a woman like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Her fake story and her
he wants to believe that woman exists. He wants to believe that very humble, very I'm only as good as your words. You know, he wants to believe that. That's
and
what
I'm so innocent, and I've come out of like nowhere America. She's not smart enough to manipulate things or anything.
No, that story is his ideal, isn't it? And that's why I love.
You're right.
Which I thought was a really clever thing in the script, that they'd made the writer the gullible one, if you like.
Yes.
But then when Karen turns round to Lloyd and is like, you're gonna give it, she calls it like a worm, you're gonna give it the role to that little worm or something, and I was like, oh, so she hasn't missed it, okay.
She
thought she'd been kind of like really sweet to Eve, she'd given her loads of chances, she hadn't been as scathing of her as, say, Birdie saw it straight away, and Margo
Birdie had been there,
Birdie saw it straight away, but then, you know, you thought, oh, Karen has got a lot of patience for her. But then as soon as it threatens potentially her position, she felt threatened, maybe because they'd been speaking, and, you know, there was that, oh, yes, she came to see me to talk about the role. And also, obviously, her friend as well, because that role, the role of Cora, was promised Margot. You see, she comes out of her shell, and actually she has this, you know, she's quite tough as well. And which, you know, I didn't mind. I thought that was quite good. You know, but it's interesting the part. Obviously, she plays a role in this, and the role is the housewife. And actually, potentially, she's capable of a lot more. But
absolutely,
so
but she's chosen a different. I wonder if the script would say she chose happiness or something, but I don't think that actually works so much, because there is that. Is it? I think it's the right Lloyd who says it to Margot, like, you have every reason for happiness except happiness. Is the kind of phrase that after they're writing and arguing about this point. That's when, like, she's like, what is it with actresses? Like, you say words and you think they belong to you or something, or and you're just a voice with a body or something.
That argument,
which I think is
brilliant.
It's brutal,
absolutely,
and it so works with Bette Davis as well, as an actress who did embody her characters. She took scripts and rewrote them, like Carrie Fisher did. She would take something and say, this isn't good enough, I'm rewriting it and stuff. And that whole argument is the writers yelling at Bette Davis saying, like, why do you think you can do this? And they're the ones in the wrong. Like, that's the thing. Like,
and that's that scene, as you say, probably because it comes from a real genuine place and passion on Bette Davis's side, that she's had these conversations and arguments in real life before, and it just is so brilliant. And she has that cutting remark about every playwright should be dead for 300 years or something. Like, it's like that's who we should be doing the scripts of. They shouldn't be around on set or something. Oh, she's wonderful. It's a showpiece for her, but yeah, and also just thinking back to like Marilyn's role in this, and I read somewhere that Marilyn and her actually argued or she snapped at Marilyn.
Yes, I've got what she said. Like, so when everyone was arguing this film. I've got some more lines as well. No one liked each other. I think that's just how Betty ran a set. Like, but she saw Marilyn, and in earshot, she said, "That little blonde slut can't act her way out of a paper bag," which is just incredible. And then afterwards, they were doing a scene together, and she said, "I know you and that little kitten voice of yours is so lousy because you never trained it the proper way an actress should train it," or something. And that meant Marilyn just ran away, and she was like crying in a dressing room or something like that. Like, Betty was mean. She was and her and sorry, go on. No, carry on, because I'm probably just going to. I was going to say Betty and Celeste Holm, and Celeste played Karen. Betty said that filming All About Eve was a happy experience. The only bitch in that cast was Celeste Holm.
I find that very hard to believe, babe. But okay, I love her.
And then Celeste Holm on Bette Davis was the first day on set. I said good morning to Bette Davis, and she responded, "Oh shit, good manners," and I never spoke to her again. So I think that's the kind of set you're having at the moment.
It's tense, isn't it? I mean, as much as it's so interesting, isn't it? Because Karen has that line, doesn't she? What's attractive on stage isn't necessarily attractive off stage, and I wonder if that's actually, because we all think we love Bette Davis, but if we actually met her, and she was behaving like that, or was she just in character, and that's the thing. Was she just a method actor, and she was just an early method actor, and she was just on.
I don't think you would never give women the credit for being method acting around then, anyway. But
you see, that's the
so
thing,
that's the thing as well. So
because she actually does sound like an absolute nightmare on this film, but you think she can't have been that bad all the time, because she wouldn't have worked at all.
I think no, exactly, and I think you start seeing these stories. And I think particularly it's always about women. That these stories are always about women. You get the same stories about men, but they're applauded for it. And they're always described as, we've dealt, a lame mate, same thing, difficult, hard to deal with. And it just meant that someone had an opinion, and maybe she had just learned through her 20 years or 30 years in the business. She'd been acting forever. That this is the way that she gets shit done. When she's on set, she doesn't make friends with people. She doesn't suffer fools. She's hard edged, and she just keeps that distance from people. She doesn't want people to get too close to her or something. Maybe that's just what she learned. It was,
I mean, this, obviously you can only defend so far, but that whole comment she makes to Marilyn about her voice. I mean, as an actress, how her career is on the way down, and Marilyn's is on the way up, and seeing Marilyn as somebody who has basically been put together by the studios, her voice
as the next MGM blonde almost.
She was. That's what they were doing. They were literally creating who's the actress they made her in the shape of in the 30s? I can't remember exactly.
I know exactly who you mean, but there's a lot of them.
But and her voice was trained. She'd had little tweaks done to her face. And not.
Sure.
I mean, I love Marilyn. I absolutely love her.
But
as another actress seeing this, you think you are only here because you look a certain way, and and that must have been frustrating to her. And then seeing her maybe not, because apparently Marilyn was so nervous she couldn't act very well. But I think she's brilliant.
I can imagine.
I think she's brilliant.
I think she's brilliant. Yeah, I do.
So I think the first couple of takes, apparently she was so scared of Betty and the environment that she actually couldn't get her words out properly, and she couldn't do what she needed to do.
Don't blame her at all.
Yeah, and that's it. You can't blame her, but
no.
You can also see Betty's like, oh, for God's sake, this amateur, and
yeah.
And I can sort of see why she feels like that. I don't think it's right to necessarily express it in the way she did.
Absolutely.
And definitely not.
Yeah.
I think that's not helpful at all. But you can sort of see why she's frustrated and
not Davis, she knew what she looked like as well. Not to say that she's not beautiful. Like I don't mean that. But when she got her I think she made comments about her poached egg eyes all the time or something. I think that's a Bette Davis kind of comment that I know. Like she kind of she knew what she looked like and she expressed that on screen more. I think sometimes she just didn't. I think there's a bit of seeing the kind of young, kind of put together people annoys her a little bit. It's like where on screen Betty's going for a little more realism. Even say in this film there's a lot of her stripped of that makeup, a lot of her looking a lot rougher. She does look a bit older than I think she actually looked in real life. I don't know what that is, if it's makeup or what, but or at least just maybe allowing herself to be lit that way. I don't know, but there's a certain amount of vulnerability she's putting on screen here that I think she probably got annoyed if she's not seeing it another way or something. Maybe that was a thing with Bette Davis. I don't know. Can't get inside her head, but
I mean, gosh, she's fascinating. She's absolutely fascinating because of these kind of on-screen, off-screen sort of politics that she obviously created, on the set. Crazy. But like you say, I mean, it's not like she didn't use her looks. Her eyes are used to full effect all the time.
Yes.
It's just probably because as fashions were changing, things were changing, her looks, not necessarily the looks that were desirable come the 50s, which is where Marilyn's sort of look really takes over, and whereas in her time, just, we're still in the, in the 30s and 40s, those big wide eyes were hugely attractive. And, so it's the same thing, really. She's done the same thing in the past. She's used her looks to full effect, but it's just that now things have changed and it's sort of being left behind a little bit potentially. And
it's funny seeing that real element of that kind of young actress coming up in the same film that's about that. It's kind of funny. And I don't know, art imitating life or life imitating art. It's there. You have the younger actress coming into this same film, and you have the older actress that hasn't really been very successful for many years coming into this and just giving a tour de force of acting. I think that's what's astonishing about this is you have both the younger actresses coming into this, and the older one is just killing it. In every scene, just killing it. And showing why this is important. I'm showing why you don't just throw women away at 30 or something like.
I think that's one thing that you can take away from this film is that she did every woman a favour by performing it in this way, because she's not trying to be nice and sweet and gentle. They wanted, like you say, they wanted to make her a bit more genteel, didn't they, to start with?
The original script was much more forgiving.
Script. And actually, by playing it in this way, she's really given a gift to actresses coming forward, because you see what's so special about her, And obviously, that's Mankiewicz's choice as well, to make her this, wonderful. And like Bill says about her, doesn't he? He says, you're talented and you're intelligent and you're a woman, you're an actress at the peak of her career or something, at the top of her career. So, I mean, that's a great thing to be saying that at this time and to trying to be pushing that forward. So I think that's a real gift that they give her as a character, but she makes the most of it, as we know. I mean, I think Eve, it's Anne Baxter, isn't it? I mean,
Anne Baxter, yeah.
I think she's great in it. I think she has a really difficult role, actually. And
she does, yeah. I think it doesn't help her, actually, because she's a bit too silent and a bit too reserved in her performance. But I think that's part of the performance. I think that's...
Yeah, I think
like,
so.
She's meant to be kind of hiding, like, herself on screen.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're about to say this, sorry, but like the moment when she does drop that facade, just after she tries to tries to kind of seduce Bill, and Bill rejects her, and she just lashes out with like just fury, like, and she wants to tear the wig and she wants to explode on screen, and then Addison knocks on the door and she suppresses everything again. It just shows that she is putting on it, she is performing in this. It's just, unfortunately, it's one of those roles that I think is a little more muted because of that. Like,
but I think she does it very well, and I think you know, and I think because it is hard to make those roles something special. Do you know what I mean? When you are basically keeping everything in, you know, that's quite tricky. But no, I think she does do it very well, because she is quite creepy at times. You know, you see her looking, and she's got this look in her eyes at times, this hungry look. So intense.
Yeah.
And it almost, you know, she almost like glazes over as she's staring at, you know, Bill asleep in the chair, I think, to be quite near the beginning.
Yes.
And it's just this kind, you're like, what is she planning? Like, it is quite scary. And, but you don't know if you're, because I remember like thinking, oh, maybe I'm just jumping to conclusions. She's just a crazy fan. You know, she just really likes me with these people. And then it's only very gradually you're like, oh, these are red flags.
It's like the phone call to Bill that she sets up.
Yeah, I think that was the worst thing. I was like, that's weird.
I remember when I first saw it, I didn't see anything in that apart from her trying to be helpful.
Oh, really?
Like, her legitimately just trying, like, being a bit of a crap PA and legitimately trying to be helpful is how I first read it. And then I saw it now and I was like, no. She's purposefully, like, catching Margo off guard, waking her up so she's ruining her sleep and stuff like that. Like, she's purposely kind of chipping away at Margo, like little bits, and knowing how to do it.
And also, it's just overstepping the mark. That's her.
Yes,
that's her
of
partner.
course. Yeah.
And you know, for me, I was like, oh, that was when I first went, oh no, that would really annoy me. Like, I would be really, like, all the rest of it you can kind of put down to, oh, she's just a fan, or she's just sweet and, you know, young. And then I was like, no, you do not phone my man for me in the middle of the night.
No.
That's not okay. Like, do you know, like, I just was like, yeah, that's when, and I think it's into, like, that's when Margo sort of has a moment of,
that's the first one, when she's probably like, hang on,
wait a minute, that's not okay.
She's brilliant, actually. She wakes up, it's like the middle of the night for her.
Yeah.
She has this phone call and then just lights a cigarette and sits up in bed like she smokes in every scene. I don't think she ever not has a cigarette on, even like when she's woke up at 2 a.m. or something, she's still smoking.
It looks so good. It's like, oh, why can't it just be healthy? You all look so glamorous as that. But yeah, I just think, that there's that bit, and also, I mean, I love the bit where she's like forgotten his birthday, clearly. But it's her prerogative to forget his birthday. It's how their relationship works. Do you know what I mean? Like, he knows she's forgotten it anyway. And that's who she is. Excuse me. And for Eve to get in the middle of that, I think is just,
I love that it shows, like, I love that it shows her naivety about relationships.
Yes.
Like, she thinks every single relationship is, I'm sexy, I can get in the middle of it. And what I really like about Bill and Margo is that actually they do really like each other. Yeah. They just argue now and again, and it's Margo and she's so, like, highly strung that Bill knows that she's gonna have a party where she kind of loses it a little bit and you know, sits by the piano and has too many martinis, but that's her and they'll get through it, like, and it's fine. And I do like how that is a strong element of their relationship in this and not like a criticism.
Absolutely.
Like, it's just you're reading this wrong because you aren't seeing them at all times. You're just seeing this kind of frustration at the moment, but you're not seeing the whole relationship. And that's such a I think it's a screenwriting thing that you don't see a lot, because you don't, with screenwriting, it's about economy, isn't it? And you can't afford to show everything that you need to see, and this film knows that and uses it well. And that's why the scripts are so strong in that element, that you are flipping all the time, flipping in your head, like, is Eve that bad? Is she really that bad? Or is Margot just like too highly strung? Or is Bill falling for her, or is he not? Is Lloyd falling for her, is he not? Is Karen on her side? Is Karen not like Margot? And it has all those elements to that, and it's all just in that interplay as well.
It's very cleverly done, very subtle. I mean, I wrote down, because I was making some notes, you know, I like to write things down, but after Eve's performance and Bill goes in to see her, and he's the director, that's a normal thing to do. She's just been an understudy and gone on, you know, that's not like unusual at all. The director would go and say, well done, you stepped up to the mark, you did a good job, you know? So that's not like he was, you know, after her in any way. And then she, I don't know whether she misreads his sort of saying well done, or whether she just has always planned this. We don't know really. But, then comes on to him and he says, I'm in love with Margot, didn't you know? Like, and I just thought, I wrote, yay Bill, we love Bill. Like, because you know, it's that she literally is like, you could just, I'm here for you. You can take me if you want me to, you know, if you want to. And they've already, him and Margot already on a rough patch at this point. But he doesn't just chuck it in, and he doesn't just go for her. He's like, no, I am actually in love with Margot. Like,
I haven't just like hitched my wagon to Margot for a career or something. Like,
that's
it's
And why would I throw that in just for this like brief affair or whatever? And I just thought that was so good, because I think it could so easily be all the men are taken in, all the men are bad characters, you know. And, you know, it could so easily have been that kind of thing. And actually, they're not. And there is a real love between Margot and him. It's difficult, but it's there. It's real.
It's there. And
I think, and I do think that's why, you know, Margot does definitely come out as the kind of winner of the whole situation, really, even though she is the older woman, which is what is so nice, I think, to see, because that isn't always the case, you know, in films. A lot of the time it isn't that way. It's the younger woman that, you know, in these stories that does okay, or, you know, it's so I
like as well, like, you'd be tempted, and maybe this is a thing because it's in the 50s, but you'd be tempted to write Eve as more psychopathic, I think might be the word, like heighten that as the film goes on, and get it more extreme, and maybe even get it more like dangerous or stuff like that. You'd be tempted to kind of really heighten that, like a kind of like a lot of the films in the 90s were, you know, that kind of thing, like single white female and stuff like that. But like they don't do that, and they keep it at level. Like, she's just like, she is, you know, quite unhinged, let's say, or quite vicious, but they keep it at a realistic level that doesn't go too kind of out there, to the point that at the end of the film she gets the award for actress, you know, and they were just still sitting there going, look at that fucking bitch. like, whereas it's not like she's not arrested or something at the end of the film, she's not put away, it's not, she didn't do anything illegal, she's just like really just kind of tried to ruin these people's lives, really, for her own success, really.
And I think it's really interesting because obviously, you know, there's all these stories, isn't there, in Hollywood and in the industry as a whole, but everyone else in that room, when she wins the Best Actress Sarah Siddons Award or whatever it is,
I wrote that down actually.
Sarah Siddons Award, and
the Sarah Siddons Award for Distinguished Achievement in the Theatre.
Oh, there we go. So she wins that, and everybody else in the room applauds her, thinks she's incredible, you know. And it's that thing, isn't it, of the industry where people can love people in the industry because of what they do and barely know who they are, and actually barely even know anything about them, but they're like, oh, she's fantastic, oh, we love her. And actually, you know, the 4 people in the room that know her, or is it 4 or 5 people in the room that know her, actually know she's not that great, really. And and I thought that was a really interesting thing at the end, and it's only the people that don't really know her that are clapping for her and happy for her, and how much that's a reflection of the industry potentially, or what they're trying to say about the industry. And so I thought that was quite
and she thanks everyone in the room but Addison, is that right? Does she thank Margot? I can't remember.
Yeah, no, she doesn't thank Addison.
But I seem to remember that, like...
Yeah, she thanks Margot, she thanks Karen.
Yeah, she thanks everyone but Addison, and Addison's actually kind of the person who... Yes, yeah. I just thought was an interesting way of writing that end bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Probably because, as a theatre critic, he wouldn't have been that popular with a lot of people in the room, potentially. And so... No. So if she attaches herself too much to him,
he's weird enough for like a she would look bad out of that.
Yeah,
she's weird enough. Like he's weird because he's also a critic, but he's almost like a gossip columnist as well.
Yeah,
which I was associated with much more modern kind of like journalism, but clearly even back then it was a thing that he's really just like a bit of a gossip columnist, writing all these kind of slaving comments about the people who are acting in the industry, not really reviewing the theatre.
No, that's it. Yeah, it's more about the gossip backstage than... And so I did wonder if it was just more about who she wants to be associated with, and as opposed to who's actually her friend at this moment in time, which is probably just Addison. And maybe Lloyd as well. I think Lloyd probably still is friends with her, but it's caused problems in his house and with his wife.
Yes, because they're working together.
Yeah, they're working together, and with Bill, but Bill doesn't really like her, and it's that kind of thing. But so I just think that was quite interesting to sort of see how to show the kind of fakeness of it. And I thought her speech was really cringy, like it was. And deliberately so. Like I think it was written that way. I think it was acted that way. It was so painfully long, and it was just like, oh, she's just saying thank you to all these people who don't like her. Like, just stop it. But I thought that was really like, it was that like meant to represent the Oscars speeches and that kind of thing. So
it felt true. It did. It felt, totally.
And the one person who is actually there for her, she doesn't even acknowledge, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah. So, and she actually says about Addison when Karen and her are talking in the toilets. Doesn't she say, "I wish he were dead"? Like she actually says something like that, like, "I wish he was dead." Like, so dramatic, like and it's so harsh.
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, I wish you guys were my friends, or you used to be my friends. I want my friends back." And Karen says, "Well, you've got Addison." Yeah. Do you remember that bit?
I was going to say that like it's what I think's really funny about the film is that she almost doesn't know when she's trying to infiltrate that group whether she wants to be friends with them or she wants to be a starlet.
Yeah.
Like she wants both of that. She kind of wants to be around that table having a champagne toast with them, but she can't have that and then be the new starlet. Those two worlds can't coexist. So it's like at some point she loses that friendship to go for the starlet, and then she ends up alone, and isolated and with this abusing man. Like, so it's like it's almost like a monkey paw kind of careful what you want, like careful what you kind of go for. Whereas you could have easily just been sitting around enjoying champagne and chatting and going to parties and all that rest of it, but you abandoned all that because you tried to stab everyone in the back. Like, so it's
very interesting. Did you notice as well, Liam, on the poster for All About Eve, Marilyn's face is right at the front. Did you see that?
I didn't see that. No,
it's really weird. I looked at it and I was like, this is quite spooky that they're like, and here's the next one coming up, like in the front of the post, like it's just her eye. It's about this much, but it's definitely Marilyn Monroe's eye. And it's like, she's right at the front, and it's like, here's the next one. I just found it, I don't know, it's like, has it already been decided that she's going to be the next big thing?
That's weird.
It's very
I wonder if that was the original poster or maybe a later release or something. But
I wondered
really
that
odd.
As well. I'm not sure. But I just saw it and I was
No,
like...
you're right. Yeah, it's the original poster.
Is
right.
it?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's quite creepy. I was like, they've decided
that is
this
really
is
bizarre.
the next one.
Yeah, that is creepy.
Yeah. So I thought it was like quite an interesting little thing to do with it. But yeah.
I say, funny enough, later in Bette Davis's career, this is the 80s when she's doing TV, she did a TV show called Hotel, and she gets sick on set and never comes back. Yeah, she gets replaced by Anne Baxter in that show. So it's quite funny that like later on in her career she actually gets replaced by Anne Baxter in a show. I doubt there was the animosity there, but it's just quite funny how that happens later on.
Yeah, I mean, because Anne Baxter in this is 27, isn't she? She's not young. She's like, she's not like 20. She's actually 27. She's playing 24, but she is 27. So she's not stupidly young. She's still mature. Well, not mature, but she's a woman. She's a woman. Yeah, she's not like a kid or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they're it's an excellent cast, really, all round. And Max, the producer's a comedy element.
It's actually the most amount of women that ever been nominated for a single film as well.
You see, yeah, I saw that, but they didn't win, did they? The women in it, none of the women won for it, did they?
No.
And that's,
no, they didn't. Which
I think that's
a crime.
Shame. Yeah, because they're all very good in it, and because Celeste Holm gets nominated as well, isn't she, for supporting? I think so.
Yes. Yeah.
But great film.
But anyway, we haven't gone through the plot exactly beat by beat, but I think we've hit everything. I think so. You got any kind of final thoughts or anything, or?
I just think it's such an interesting film where we could probably talk about it all day, of just the themes in it and the the role of women in a career sense, and and Hollywood and the state of Hollywood and the society of the time, and so much of it rings true now, as we've talked about. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. What do you any other things that you think we haven't quite touched on or anything?
The only thing I say is I think it probably plays a little differently to you if you watch it as like a 20-year-old, or if you watch it as like approaching 40 or something. I think it probably plays slightly different in your head, and I think that's what's really strong about the film. And I think not a film that a lot of people talk to me about, funnily. It's not one of the things that people often mention, I think, but it's a film that I think everyone who has ever seen it seems to love it. Like, so it's there, in the kind of background. But I really, it's such a strong film, and I just love watching those performances. Bette Davis in particular, I just love watching all of it, and I think it's such a joy to watch, really. And a more complicated film than I think I give it credit for. I think it's even like the kind of the fasten your seatbelt, it's going to be a bumpy ride kind of line. It's actually like it's not as like prominent in the film as I would think it is, knowing that line later on. It's actually kind of, it's just part of the kind of script. It's part of the scene. It's part of everything. Everything is folded in and nicely like textured in such a good way.
Definitely.
I love it.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's so skillfully written, and I think brilliantly written and performed. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, we'll call it an end there. Thank you so much for joining me again,
thank
Natalie.
you, Leo. I'm
sure you'll be back very soon. I can't remember what is it. I think we have you touch of evil. Is it? I think it's coming to Orson Welles. So
yeah, that'll be fun.
I think it is. So I look forward to kind of having you back, and look forward to watching more stuff like that. So thank you so much, and I hope lockdown isn't too dreadful going forward.
Same. I hope you get to move from the desk at some point, and peek outside a little bit. But yeah,
not just change.
But no, it's been a pleasure. It's been so lovely to actually go through such a wonderful film. I mean, what a treat, really, to be able to delve into it such detail, and yeah, it's been lovely. So thank you.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. I'll do that thing Ollie does to wrap up with. So please rate, review, and subscribe to us. You can subscribe anywhere where you get podcasts, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube and a host of other sites. If you enjoy what we do, please rate, review, subscribe. Follow us on Twitter or at Your Tracking. That's your with a YR. And if the picture's bad, adjust your tracking. I think that's what he says. Bye.